Imagine the blistering sun beating down on a luxury car in a sun-drenched driveway. A little girl's tear-streaked face pressed against the tinted window, her cries silent but desperate. Suddenly, a maid in uniform grabs a hammer, smashing the glass in a shower of shards that sparkle like deadly diamonds in the daylight. A millionaire stands frozen, hands clutching his head in horror as the unbelievable unfolds. A forgotten child, a neglectful wife, and an act of raw bravery that shatters more than just a window. In the golden haze of a sun-drenched afternoon, where the light bounced off the polished chrome of luxury cars like diamonds scattered on asphalt, a scream pierced the air, not from a person, but from the frantic honking of a horn that no one seemed to hear. Picture it, a sprawling estate on the hills of Beverly Hills, the kind where palm trees swayed lazily under an unrelenting California sun, casting long shadows that danced like forgotten promises. At the center of it all sat a gleaming black sedan, its tinted windows sealed tight, parked in the driveway like a forgotten relic. Inside, a little girl, no more than 5, pressed her tiny hands against the glass, her face flushed red, sweat matting her curls to her forehead. Her cries were muffled, lost in the vastness of the property, but her eyes, wide with terror, spoke volumes. She banged on the window, her small fists leaving smudges on the pristine surface, as the interior heated like an oven under the midday blaze. This wasn't just any oversight. It was a deliberate shadow in a world of blinding light. The millionaire's new wife, Elena, had forgotten her stepdaughter, Lily, in the car after a quick errand to the boutique district. Elena, with her designer sunglasses perched on her nose and a fresh latte in hand, had sauntered back into the mansion without a backward glance, her heels clicking on the marble steps as if the world revolved around her whims. But hidden in the wings of this opulent stage was Maria, the family's longtime maid, a woman whose quiet strength had been forged in the fires of her own unseen battles. As the sun climbed higher, turning the car into a death trap, Maria's heart raced. She had seen too much, endured too much to let this slide. What she did next would shatter the facade of this perfect life, exposing cracks that ran deeper than anyone imagined. How could a simple act of kindness unravel an empire built on neglect? The answer lay in the unbelievable choice Maria made that day, a choice that would redefine bravery in the face of indifference, forcing a shocked millionaire to confront the truth in the harsh light of day. The story begins not with tragedy, but with the illusion of bliss under the bright morning sun that flooded the estate like a promise of endless tomorrows. Richard Harlan, the millionaire tech mogul, had built his fortune from nothing, a rags-to-riches tale of coding late into the night in a cramped garage, turning algorithms into billions. Now, at 45, he lived in a mansion that gleamed with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking manicured lawns where the daylight painted everything in hues of gold and green. Richard was a man of quiet intensity, his broad shoulders carrying the weight of loss. His first wife, Sarah, had passed away 3 years earlier from a sudden illness, leaving him with their daughter, Lily, a spirited 5-year-old with her mother's bright blue eyes and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Lily was Richard's world, the one pure thing in his empire of boardrooms and deals. He doted on her, reading bedtime stories under the soft glow of morning light filtering through her bedroom curtains, promising her the stars even as grief lingered in his voice. Richard's personality was one of steadfast reliability, but his hidden struggle was the guilt of burying himself in work to escape the pain, often leaving Lily in the care of others during sunlit afternoons. Enter Elena Voss, the new wife, a vision of calculated elegance at 32. She had swept into Richard's life like a summer breeze, all radiant smiles and whispered affections during sunlit brunches at exclusive clubs. Elena was a former model turned influencer, her social media feeds a cascade of bright, filtered perfection, yacht parties under clear skies, designer gowns and golden hour photo shoots. But beneath the gloss, Elena harbored a hidden resentment, a moral conflict born from her own unfulfilled dreams. She had married Richard for the lifestyle, not the baggage. Lily, to her, was an inconvenience, a reminder of the life Richard had before her. "She's just a phase," Elena would mutter to herself in the mirror, applying lipstick in the vanity's harsh morning light, her eyes cold despite the warmth streaming in. Elena's personality was polished on the surface, charming and vivacious, but underneath lay a selfishness forged from years of chasing superficial validation. Her hidden struggle, the fear of being seen as inadequate compared to Sarah's memory. And then there was Maria Gonzalez, the maid who had been with the family for a decade. At 48, Maria was the invisible thread holding the household together. She rose with the dawn, her hands calloused from years of scrubbing floors and folding linens in the bright kitchen where sunlight poured through like a blessing. Maria's own story was one of hidden struggles. A single mother who had fled an abusive home in Mexico, crossing borders under the relentless sun to build a life for her son, now grown and studying on scholarships she scrimped to support. She saw in Lily the daughter she never had, and in Richard, a man drowning in his own success. Maria's kindness was her armor. She hummed old lullabies while preparing breakfast, her warm brown eyes catching the light as she watched Lily play in the garden. But Elena treated her like furniture, barking orders in the daylight hours, never seeing the woman behind the uniform. Maria swallowed it all, her moral compass steady, whispering prayers for patience under her breath. Her personality was resilient and empathetic, but her hidden struggle was the constant fear of instability, deportation, poverty, separation from her family, keeping her in a cycle of quiet endurance. The normal world hummed along in this sunlit bubble. Mornings began with Richard kissing Lily goodbye before heading to his downtown office, the sun glinting off his luxury watch as he drove away in his suit, hands gripping the wheel with the weight of unspoken grief. Elena would lounge by the pool, scrolling her phone in the bright glare, occasionally snapping at Maria to fetch iced tea or clean up after Lily's playtime. Lily, oblivious to the undercurrents, would chase butterflies in the garden, her laughter echoing off the white stucco wall bathed in daylight. It was a facade of harmony, but subtle tensions simmered. Richard, blinded by his fresh start, ignored Elena's subtle dismissals of Lily, how she'd forget to pack the girl's lunch or leave her toys scattered in the sun to fade. Maria noticed, her heart aching as she picked up the pieces, wiping away Lily's tears during bright afternoons when Elena shooed the child away for adult time. Once, in the sunlit kitchen, Maria overheard Elena on the phone complaining about that brat ruining my vibe, her words cutting like the sharp light reflecting off the countertops. Maria bit her tongue, her own moral conflict raging. Speak up and risk everything, or stay silent and watch injustice unfold. Little did they know, this fragile peace was about to shatter under the weight of one scorching afternoon, when Elena's neglect would push Maria to an act of unbelievable bravery, witnessed by a horrified Richard in the blinding daylight. The tension simmered like the heat rising from the driveway pavement, building layer by layer under the relentless daylight sun. It started innocently enough, on a Tuesday when the temperature soared past 95 degrees, the kind of day where the air shimmered like a mirage over the estate's lush grounds. Elena had insisted on taking Lily shopping for bonding time, her voice dripping with false sweetness as she buckled the girl into the backseat of the black sedan, the leather seats already warm from the morning rays. Richard, rushing to a meeting, waved them off from the front steps, the sun casting his shadow long and trusting. "Have fun, my girls," he called, oblivious to the storm brewing, his mind already on boardroom negotiations under fluorescent lights mimicking daylight. As they drove through the sun-dappled streets of Beverly Hills, Elena's mask began to slip. Lily chattered excitedly about a new doll she wanted, her voice bubbling like a stream in the bright interior of the car. But Elena's grip tightened on the wheel, her manicured nails digging in, her hidden jealousy flaring. "Quiet, Lily." "Mommy's thinking," she snapped. Though she was no mother, merely a placeholder in this gilded cage, her moral conflict evident in the way she glanced at the child in the rearview mirror with thinly veiled disdain. They stopped at an upscale boutique, the sun beating down on the parking lot as Elena parked in a spot with partial shade, or so she claimed. "Stay here, sweetie. It's just for a minute," Elena said, locking the doors with a beep that echoed like a finality. Lily nodded, clutching her stuffed bear, the air conditioning's hum fading as Elena disappeared into the air-conditioned store, her phone buzzing with notifications from admirers. Minutes turned to an hour, then two. Inside the car, the temperature climbed rapidly, the sun turning the vehicle into a greenhouse of suffocating heat. Lily's cheeks flushed, her breaths coming in shallow gasps. She whimpered, pressing the horn weakly, but the boutique's lot was empty, the daylight too bright for anyone to notice the tiny figure behind tinted glass. Sweat dripped down her face, her small body weakening as dehydration set in, her cries turning to sobs that fogged the window. Back at the estate, Maria went about her chores, dusting the sunlit living room where family photos gleamed. Images of happier times with Sarah, now gathering dust under the relentless light. But something nagged at her, a mother's intuition honed from years of vigilance in harsh conditions. She glanced at the clock. Elena should have been back by now. Stepping into the garden, the sun warm on her face, Maria called Elena's number. No answer. A knot formed in her stomach, her hidden struggles resurfacing. The memories of her own child left in precarious situations during her migrant days. The fear that history was repeating. Meanwhile, Elena lingered in the boutique, flirting with the sales clerk under fluorescent lights that mimicked daylight, trying on dresses and sipping champagne. She forgot about Lily entirely, her mind on a lunch date with friends at a rooftop cafe, the sun high overhead, casting golden rays on her carefree laughter. Obstacles began to mount as Elena's phone died from overuse, cutting off any chance of a reminder. When she finally sauntered back to the car over 2 hours later, she froze for a split second, seeing Lily slumped in the seat, unresponsive, sweat-soaked, and pale. Panic flickered in Elena's eyes, not from guilt, but fear of consequences. Instead of calling for help, she drove home in silence, the sun glaring through the windshield like an accusatory eye, her moral conflict twisting into denial. Upon arriving at the estate, she carried Lily inside, laying her on the couch in the bright family room, fanning her with a magazine. She just fell asleep, Elena lied to herself, but Maria, emerging from the kitchen with a tray of lemonade, saw the truth immediately. Lily's skin was clammy, her breathing labored, the signs of heat exhaustion Maria recognized from her own grueling days laboring in fields under the Mexican sun. Maria's heart shattered. "Señora, what happened?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the rage building, the sunlight streaming through the windows, illuminating the girl's fragility. Elena waved her off dismissively. "Mind your business, Maria. She's fine. Just a nap." But Maria knelt by Lily, feeling her forehead, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and fury. This was the first escalation, a confrontation in the sunlit hallway where voices rose like the midday heat. "You left her in the car? In this heat?" Elena's face twisted in defensiveness. "How dare you accuse me? You're just the help." The words stung, echoing Maria's hidden struggles. The belittlement she endured daily, the way Elena piled on chores without thanks, forcing Maria to send meager remittances home while her son struggled alone. But Maria stood tall, the light catching the determination in her eyes, her bravery stirring. As the afternoon wore on, more obstacles emerged. Richard called from his office, the sun setting up his boardroom in a blaze of orange, inquiring about Lily. Elena lied smoothly. "She's playing outside in the garden." Maria overheard from the doorway, her moral compass spinning wildly. She couldn't stay silent anymore. Sneaking into the study, where sunlight filtered through blinds like bars on a cage, Maria accessed the home security app on her phone, a tool she'd learned to use for chores, her fingers flying with quiet efficiency. There, in crystal clear footage, was the truth. Elena locking the car, walking away without a glance. The timestamp ticking mercilessly as Lily's form wilted inside. The evidence was damning, but using it meant risking everything. Her bio, her visa, her fragile stability in a country that often overlooked people like her. Twists came fast. Elena, sensing Maria's suspicion, cornered her in the kitchen, the bright overhead lights casting harsh shadows on their faces. "If you say a word, I'll have you fired and deported. Who do you think Richard will believe? His wife or the maid?" Maria's hands trembled as she chopped vegetables, the sun glinting off the knife like a warning, but her resolve hardened. This wasn't just about Lily. It was about every overlooked soul, every hidden struggle screaming for justice, from migrant workers to forgotten children. Emotional intensity built as Maria confided in her son over a hushed phone call in the garden, the daylight fading but still warm on her skin. "Mama, be careful," he warned, his voice crackling with worry, reminding her of the sacrifices she'd made crossing sun-baked borders. "Some things are worth the risk," she whispered back, her voice thick with emotion. Confrontations escalated when Richard returned home early, the sun dipping toward the horizon but still bathing the driveway in golden light. Elena spun her tale of an innocent outing, but Lily, reviving slightly on the couch, murmured weakly, "Hot car, Mommy left me." Richard's face paled, the pieces clicking like puzzle fragments in the bright room. Yet Elena gaslighted him relentlessly. "She's exaggerating. Kids do that. You know how dramatic she can be." Maria watched from the shadows of the hallway, her heart pounding like a drum, knowing the breaking point was near. The injustice festered. Elena's neglect born from deep-seated jealousy, Richard's blindness from lingering grief, Maria's bravery bubbling up from years of swallowed pain and moral conflict. As the sun hung low, casting long golden rays across the estate's manicured lawns, Maria made her choice. She would do the unbelievable, not for revenge, but for redemption, even if it meant shattering glass and lives in the process. The climax erupted like a storm in the clear daylight, the sun at its zenith the next morning, turning the estate into a stage of raw, cinematic confrontation. Richard, haunted by Lily's weak cries from the night before, had taken her to the doctor at dawn, the bright clinic lights confirming severe heat exhaustion bordering on heat stroke, dehydration, elevated heart rate, and the doctor's grave warning. She could have died if left any longer. The words echoed in Richard's mind like a death knell as he drove back, the sun glaring off the hood of his car like a spotlight on his failures as a father. He stormed into the mansion, the family room flooded with morning light streaming through expansive windows, demanding answers from Elena. She lounged on the chaise, sipping coffee in a silk robe, her face a mask of feigned innocence. "Darling, it was an accident. I got distracted at the store, traffic, you know how it is." But Maria, who had spent a sleepless night in her small quarters at the back of the house, where sunlight barely penetrated but her thoughts burned bright like the dawn, could no longer hold back. She emerged from the kitchen, her blue uniform crisp and her warm brown skin glowing in the light, carrying a tablet with the security footage queued up. The air thickened with suspense as she approached, her steps deliberate on the sun-warmed tiles, her heart racing with the weight of her hidden struggles. "Senor Harlan," she said, her voice trembling but firm, laced with the accent of her Mexican roots, "you need to see this. It's the truth." Elena's eyes widened in fury, lunging forward like a cornered animal. "Don't you dare!" "Richard, she's lying. She's always been jealous of our life." But Richard, his face etched with doubt and rising anger, took the tablet from Maria's steady hands. The screen lit up in the bright room, playing the footage in high definition. Elena locking the sedan doors, striding away without a backward glance. The timestamp ticking over 2 agonizing hours as Lily's tiny form slumped inside, the car's interior baking under the sun. The revelation hit like a thunderclap, shattering the silence. Richard's world crumbled. He replayed the video, the sunlight catching the tears welling in his eyes, his hands shaking. "How could you do this?" he roared, his voice breaking like glass, echoing off the walls of the opulent space. Elena backed away, her composure cracking under the intense light, her hidden jealousy spilling out. "It was a mistake. I love her like my own. I do." But the lie hung heavy, exposed in the unforgiving daylight, her moral conflict laid bare as excuses tumbled from her lips. Power shifted in that instant. Richard, once blinded by love and grief, saw Elena for who she truly was, a woman whose resentment had nearly cost him his daughter, her selfishness a poison in their sunlit paradise. Maria stood there, vulnerable yet unyielding, as Elena turned on her with venom. "You sneaky bitch, I'll ruin you, deported by morning." Elena grabbed for the tablet, her nails scratching at Maria's arm, but Maria held firm, her calloused hands a testament to years of labor and quiet strength. The most intense and dramatic moment surged forward, cinematic in its raw power. Richard, overwhelmed, demanded the full story, his voice a mix of fury and heartbreak. In a flood of emotion, Maria revealed her own secrets, her voice rising in the sunlit room like a revelation. I've seen it all, Senor. The way she ignores Lily, leaves her alone while chasing her perfect life. I stayed silent because I needed this job for my son, for my family back home, scraping by under the same sun that burns us all. But yesterday when I saw the car from the window and realized what happened, I couldn't wait. The unbelievable act spilled out in vivid detail. Maria, upon spotting the locked sedan in the driveway after Elena's return, but before Elena had even checked on Lily, had grabbed an emergency window breaker from the garage, a small hammer-like tool kept for safety, its handle circled in her grip like a lifeline. Racing into the driveway under the blazing sun, sweat beading on her forehead, Maria smashed the passenger window in a single desperate blow. Glass shattered in a sparkling cascade, catching the light like deadly confetti as she reached in to unlock the door and pull the limp Lily into her arms, cradling her and rushing her inside for water and cool cloths. But Elena had arrived moments later, claiming the rescue as her own in a panic to cover her tracks. The footage confirmed it all, a hidden driveway camera capturing Maria's heroic sprint, the hammer's impact, and Elena's delayed arrival. Richard, witnessing the replay, clutched his head in shock, his suit rumpled in the heat, hands pressing against his temples as if to hold his fracturing world together, just as in that frozen moment of horror. Confrontation peaked as Elena's facade crumbled completely. She confessed in a torrent of tears, streaming down her face in the bright light. I never wanted to be a mother. Lily reminds me of everything I'm not. Sarah's ghost haunting me every day. I just forgot. The admission was a power shift, raw and unforgettable, as Richard called the authorities right there, the sun streaming through as police arrived in squad cars, their badges glinting in the daylight. Justice demanded accountability. Elena was arrested for child endangerment, her pleas echoing off the walls as officers led her away, the broken car window a symbol of the shattered illusion. Maria, in a surge of redemption, was hailed not as the maid, but the savior, her bravery shifting the balance forever. Richard embraced her tightly, whispering through sobs, "You saved my world. Thank you." The scene was cinematic and intense. The three of them, Richard in shock, Lily safe but fragile, Maria standing tall amid the glass. In the sun-drenched driveway, palm leaves dancing in the breeze like witnesses to the unbelievable. In the aftermath, as the sun set on that transformative day and rose again on new beginnings, the estate transformed from a house of secrets to one of healing light, the broken car window repaired, but the scars lingering like lessons etched in glass. Elena's arrest made headlines, her influencer empire crumbling under the bright scrutiny of public outrage. Tabloids splashed with photos of her in handcuffs, the daylight exposing her true colors in viral videos. She faced charges of child endangerment, but in a twist of redemption, Richard ensured she got help, not just punishment. He arranged for therapy sessions in sunlit offices where she confronted her deep-seated jealousy and moral conflicts, emerging months later a changed woman. Divorced and humbled, Elena wrote letters from afar, her words raw with regret. I was lost in my own shadows, but your forgiveness lights the way. It wasn't easy. Emotional transformation came slowly, but Elena volunteered at child safety organizations, turning her hidden struggles into advocacy, a redemption arc that showed even the flawed could find light. Richard underwent his own profound inner change. The event a wake-up call to his grief-numbed life. No longer blind to the injustices around him, he cut back on work, spending bright mornings in the garden with Lily, the sunlight warming their games as he rebuilt their bond through laughter and stories. I was so focused on building an empire, I forgot to protect my heart, he admitted to Maria one golden afternoon over coffee in the kitchen, the light streaming in like a balm. His moral revelation led to broader actions. He established a foundation for migrant workers, inspired by Maria's story, funding scholarships and legal aid under the relentless California sun. Richard's personality softened, his once rigid demeanor giving way to empathy as he hired more staff with fair wages, ensuring no one felt invisible in his home. Lily, fully recovered after weeks of rest in sunlit rooms, blossomed anew. Her drawings now featuring Maria as a hammer-wielding hero, the crayon sun shining bright on the page, a symbol of her own emotional transformation from fear to trust. Maria, the everyday hero whose bravery had sparked it all, found deep redemption in her act. Richard promoted her to household manager, doubling her salary and sponsoring her full citizenship. Rewards for her kindness that eased her hidden struggles, allowing her to bring her son home for good. They reunited in the estate's garden under the warm daylight, tears of joy mixing with laughter as he hugged her tightly. "Mama, you were always the strong one," he said, his voice thick with pride. Maria's personality, once defined by quiet endurance, now radiated confidence. She shared her story in local communities, speaking at sunlit gatherings about the power of speaking up. Her moral justice, a beacon for others facing similar battles. No longer just the maid, she became a symbol of the hidden strengths in everyday people. Her unbelievable act, a testament to how one person's courage can demand justice and foster change. This story ties into larger social themes. The invisible labors of domestic workers like Maria, often immigrants enduring exploitation in bright, affluent worlds. The moral justice that blooms from acts of quiet bravery against neglect, and the redemption possible when we confront our inner conflicts in the light of truth. Elena's jealousy, Richard's blindness, and Maria's hidden pain all transformed into growth, proving that emotional revelations can heal even the deepest wounds. In a society where the powerful often overlook the vulnerable, children left in cars, workers dismissed as help, Maria's hammer strike reminds us of the hidden struggles screaming for attention. What if we all listened to that inner voice, the one urging us toward kindness and justice, even at great personal risk? Perhaps then, no child would be forgotten in the scorching light, and no hero would remain unseen. Acts of depth like Maria's don't just save lives, they redeem souls, shifting power and illuminating the human spirit. If this story of bravery, transformation, and moral justice moved you, subscribe to Acts of Depth and share your own tales of hidden heroism in the comments. Remember, in the brightest moments, true change begins with one unbelievable act. Will you be the one to take it?